Landlords get used to dealing with difficult people. Most pay rent on time and treat the property well. But every now and then, you encounter an exception. Someone who chooses to make life difficult. Normally, landlords can lean on the eviction process. But in 2020, normal looked very different. Which is when a Florida landlord discovered she had a squatter, right as the eviction moratorium took effect, locking the squatter firmly in place in a story we call the Florida Squatter. It's early March 2020. Lauren Keene Almond was on the move. She had just turned 30, was newly married, making 6 figures at her sales job, and positioned to grow her real estate portfolio. She had just sold her primary home, parlaying that equity into a bed and breakfast down in Tampa, Florida. She also had a duplex, where her property manager had placed 2 tenants. Lauren's goal was simple: keep the tenants happy and paying in the duplex, and remodel the new bed and breakfast, allowing her and her husband to comfortably house hack. This story centers on one side of that duplex. And this story begins with a novel coronavirus originating in China, one that would float its way to North America, arriving at a full-blown panic. Every aspect of life in Florida was touched by COVID, leading to a shutdown of the restaurant that her 65-year-old tenant was working at. This 65-year-old man lived on the left side of the duplex, sharing the central wall with a working mom and her daughter. Thankfully for Lauren, the working mom did not lose her job and was able to keep paying her rent. The now unemployed 65-year-old man was unable to do so, telling Lauren that paying April's rent just was not going to be possible. And Lauren understood things were crazy in March of 2020. Her and her husband held a stiff upper lip. Thankfully, they had purchased the duplex in cash, thanks to the proceeds coming from Lauren's first primary home that she sold. Yet at the same time, they had just begun renovations for their new bed and breakfast. And looking at their finances, they figured that they might be able to ride out the storm all right. That was until a week later, when Lauren called to check in on her tenant. COVID was hitting people hard, and Lauren wanted to make sure that he was doing all right. Unnervingly, the phone just kept ringing. Something about him not answering his phone gave Lauren pause, so she went through and started checking police reports, and to her shock, she found her tenant's name. Turns out this 65-year-old man had a 26-year-old girlfriend living with him. Apparently, they had gotten into an argument. The man tried to get the girlfriend to leave, closing the door right when she stuck her arm into the door jamb. When the police were called, they saw the marks on this 26-year-old girl's arm and arrested the man. On the police report, the girl listed the duplex as her area of residence, even though her name was not on the lease. Not knowing any better, the police dropped her off at the duplex, where she would file a restraining order on her now ex-boyfriend and change the locks. It was early April, and that's when the squatting began. This was a lot for Lauren to handle. She repeatedly tried contacting the man and the now girl-turned-squatter to no avail. And there was no playbook for anything like this. The newly minted eviction moratorium confused everyone. Lawyer after lawyer refused to help. Lauren could only sit and wait. But she didn't have to wait long. A few weeks after the squatting had begun, Lauren got a call from the only real tenant, that working mom living on the right side of the duplex, telling Lauren that there were weird smells coming from the squatter's side of the duplex. Not only that, but the girl had invited a clearly homeless man to move in with her. That is, until there was some sort of altercation where the squatter bit this homeless man, leading to another police visit. And just as the first time, they let her continue staying at the property. Lauren didn't know what to say other than sorry. There was nothing she could do. Floored at the audacity that this 20-something-year-old chick had, embarrassed that this was happening at all while trying to ease the mind of her very real tenant living next to a soap opera. Thankfully, Lauren did share something on the phone that would be genuinely helpful. She remembered that Florida law states that after 2 weeks of absence, the property would be considered abandoned. Armed with this knowledge, the trap was set. For weeks, the working mother kept an eye on the comings and goings of the squatter, keeping track and praying that she would just leave. After all, there were no utilities on that side of the duplex. They were all shut off. And then, in early June, 3 months after this ordeal began, Lauren finally got the call. She's abandoned the property. Immediately, Lauren's husband swooped in with a locksmith, changing the locks, and for the first time in 3 months, the property was back with its rightful owners. After the short moment of joy, they looked around and saw the sorry state of their duplex. Feces was smeared all over the floor. For weeks, the toilet and sinks did not work since the utilities were turned off, leaving everything to fester in the floor to heat and humidity. Still, they counted it as a victory. Early the next morning, Lauren awoke with a weird feeling. A pit in her stomach told her that something was off. She had work calls all morning, so her husband drove out to the property to check on everything, make sure everything was all right. And he found that the rear window was broken, giving the squatter access to the unit. Inside, it was clear that she had come back and taken some of her belongings. And interestingly, she busted up the stove. Immediately, Lauren and her husband began working on ending this once and for all. They found a storage unit and hired movers, taking all of their belongings into that storage unit. Next, they called the ex-tenant and ex-squatter, informing them that all of their belongings was at this storage facility. Both had answered their phones for the first time in forever and agreed to get their stuff. From there, the property was deep cleaned, with a new tenant moving in on July 1st, only to stop paying because of COVID. Thankfully, this was temporary, and the government provided some rental assistance in the meantime. This was 4 years ago, and since then, Lauren has built a portfolio of 12 units in Florida. This experience with long-term rentals changed her outlook on real estate. From now on, Lauren is mostly interested in short-term rentals, keeping stays under 28 days, after which the guest becomes a tenant under Florida law. This way, after each guest ends their stay, the codes on the smart locks change, the cleaners come, and no feces is smeared on the ground. Lauren likes it this way. It's allowed her to follow her passions full-time now. She hosts 2 podcasts, Adulting is Easy and House Money. You should check them out. The links are down below. You can also follow her on Twitter. She's a great follow and a great person. Thank you for listening. The goal for this channel is to share incredible stories from landlords, a perspective that is not often shared. So if you have a landlord horror story of your own, share it in the comments below.